We're getting the band back together. That's right. I'm Paul Comfort, and on this episode of Transit Unplugged, the podcast, we bring back in two friends of the show who you may have heard quite a bit a few years ago. Regular contributors Mike Bismeyer, the King of Kindness, and Elea Carey, our marketing expert. Both of them now, after they appeared for a couple years, pretty much every other week on the Transit Unplugged podcast during and just after the pandemic, they've now gone on to become well-known in the transit industry. Both of them are speakers and trainers. Mike speaks as keynotes at conferences all over. And Alaya, I've seen her. She's amazing to talk, and she talks today about some of the great things you can do right now to market your system, what the role of AI is. Mike talks about the power of mentorship in his life and in others and in this transit industry. It's a great blend. At the end, we talk about kind of the antidote to artificial intelligence, which is real personal relationships and the role they play in public transportation. I think you'll find this a fascinating discussion between three good friends on this episode. I also want to bring your attention to what we've got coming up for you in September. We're going to have a super September here on Transit Unplugged. I feel like one of those guys on TV selling cars. We're going to have a super September. But we are, man. You will not believe the guests that we are going to have lined up for you. The biggest guests in America are coming on Transit Unplugged in September. Some of the top CEOs of the largest transit agencies are coming on. Take a look at our social media to find out more. It is going to be one super September. If you ever wanted to invite a friend to listen to Transit Unplugged, now's the time. Tune them in to September's all 4 episodes for the top leaders in transit in America on Super September. For those of you who have been listening to our podcast for a while, you might remember the voices of Mike and Alaya. They were both regulars on our show through the pandemic, and thought we'd get the band back together, as Alaya said, and catch up with everyone. So Mike used to do, so you all remember during the pandemic, things got crazy and people got a little out there and out of hand sometimes. And so Mike was the king of kindness and still is. And so I thought it'd be great to have a friendly reminder about the importance of kindness. I mean, really, Mike, that's at the soul of what we do, right? Is kindness to others.
Yeah, it is. It's great. I mean, I've always said, I believe that transit is kindness in action. So, right, we're giving people opportunity that they may not have without the availability of transit. So inherently, it's good. And I think it's important to bring that through to the workplace and build our own sort of brands internally and sort of lead with that. And as we know, things have changed, and it was very crazy for a while, which we talked about quite regularly. But one of the really neat things that's evolved is sort of kindness really has become one of the key leadership traits now when you read a lot of the new literature and a lot of the new studies, a lot of the new public speakers that are talking about it. And for me, I've had a lot more interest to come and speak to workplaces about sort of workplace culture. So yeah, it's great, Paul. It was a great platform. And of course, it was a great segue with, Alaya's mix of how we change branding at agencies that sort of all played together. So it was great. As much as we don't always want to say we enjoyed the pandemic, it was great to be part of that for sure.
Yeah. And Alaya, your regular contribution to the show was marketing agencies. During the pandemic, ridership dropped down dramatically. I was calling it a gut punch to the industry, where most agencies dropped more than half their regular riders. And as we started to come back, you're a marketing expert. And so we had you talking to transit agencies about how to improve their marketing and reach more customers.
Yep, that was a great opportunity for me. As you well know, I came out of Silicon Valley in the pandemic, and really, when the pandemic hit, I wanted to do something that, I love that phrase, kindness in action. I wanted to do something that would really leave a great legacy for a wider group of people. And I found you and Comfort's Corner, the old version of the podcast, and I started listening to people in transit, leaders in transit, talking about transit. And I was like, wow, I want to be a part of this. So I think I shot you a note on LinkedIn, and we started talking about what transit really could be doing. And we both saw that moment of the pandemic as this incredible moment of opportunity for people to really be able to promote transit and really for the public to see what was really vital and important about transit. And so I got the opportunity to talk about how to promote all of transit's great aspects.
And since then, you both have gone on to some amazing things. I'd like to think maybe we had a little something to help you do that, but both of you were very busy and active during that time. But since then, Mike, tell us, well, let's start here, actually. The day you and I are talking is a big day in the electric bus industry because John Walsh, our buddy, just got announced today as president and CEO of some of the folks that are helping run what was Proterra. And I think when you and I got together, that's where you were working, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a great segue for sure. I mean, April of 2019 is when I joined Proterra, April Fool's Day, which I guess will always resonate with me. But yeah, I mean, I believe I was, and I was there 4 years, had a great run. It was a great day. But I think it was my first week in, you happened to be in on a sort of a leadership call internally. And then you and I connected on sort of Facebook and all the platforms after that. We connected. You were in Vancouver shortly thereafter, and sort of had a great great forming of a peer-to-peer friendship that's really grown. I'm still in the e-mobility side on the charge management software on my day-to-day, but have really sort of, as you said, the platform of Mike's Minute on Comfort's Corner, for sure really helped propel that public speaking. And I can tell you, I probably do 6 to 8 functions a year now just on sort of workplace culture for agencies. I was just in Ohio last week for an architecture firm that brought me in that had been at a transit conference where they saw me speak. So yeah, I mean, I owe a lot of kudos to you and Alaya for being such good advocates together. I think we had a great thing. But yeah, I mean, this industry is amazing. There's a lot of good people. And you're right, it does go full circle. Our friends keep showing up in new roles, different challenges. And never a dull moment for sure.
Yeah, the industry constantly changes. Alea, you also tell us about what you've been doing lately. You've been doing more of this. I've seen you both in action, actually. Just recently, Mike, I saw you speak at a TripSpark conference as a keynote speaker. You were phenomenal, by the way. I mean, I've seen you before, but really good keynote talk you've been giving. And Alea, I saw you at the Transportation Association of Maryland conference, I think, last year, which is coming up again real soon. And you were speaking there, and I think I've seen you somewhere else lately talk. And just amazing. Tell us what you do now.
Yeah, you and I were at CTAA in San Diego was that May?
That's where I just saw you in June. Yeah, early May, June.
Yeah. Yep, early June. Yeah, so Transit Happy is the company that I launched with somewhat having this platform from you of being able to talk to transit people about marketing. And I've grown that company to, I couldn't tell you how many clients I have right now. Maybe I should know that number, but I don't. But I've got clients all over the country, and they are mostly small urban and rural public transit agencies, writing marketing plans for them, which is a great thing I love to research. We also produce full campaigns, conceptualize promotional campaigns, and then produce and implement campaigns. I work with a graphic designer who's probably the single most experienced person in transit graphic design, who's working on his own in the country, a guy named Rick Schuster. And I also get to work with Selena Barlow, who is on the verge of retiring and supporting me a lot, mentoring me. Mike has talked a lot about the importance of mentoring. So have you, Paul, by the way. And Selena has 30 plus years in marketing for public transit, rural and small urban public transit, and has been very supportive of me. So I just got off the phone talking in Southern California about a new campaign that we want to launch that's both a clean air, it has both clean air element and also a trade one of your car trips a week for transit. To take a transit trip. And this just gets right to the heart of what I want to do, real behavior change and marketing for behavior change and promoting public transit.
We now produce both this podcast, but also a TV show where we're traveling. I'm traveling all the time to different cities and showcasing their food, fun, and culture and their public transportation behind the scenes. I also wrote a book, The New Future Public Transportation, which was a compilation book, like most of them have been, where I included 30 other folks in the book that are leaders of various segments of the industry. And we've done a bunch of book signings together and various events together. Mike was in the cookbook. My latest book is coming out next year, I think. I've written a book a year for 6 years, and I'm writing one in the 7th year, but it probably won't be published until 26, because I'm working with a really big publisher, and those timelines take a lot longer. It's like a 9-month process to get a book out, and it's more of a personal development book. So we've all had a lot of things going on in our lives, but our focus still remains the same, Mike. One of the things that Elea mentioned earlier is that you've been focused on mentorship and kindness. And talk to us about that. You're real active in CUDA, the Canadian Urban Transportation Association. You and I will be up there together this fall at a conference where we'll be filming an episode of our show in Montreal. But tell us about the role of mentorship and what you're doing there with CUDA.
Sure. No, great. And yeah, so some of the other changes, I mean, as things have migrated over the years, I ran for a position with the business members. I sort of got elected. And so through aggregation, served as secretary, then vice chair. I just moved into the chair of the business members on the CUDA in Canada at the May Spring Conference. Yeah, we have our fall conference, but I've also been heavily involved the last 2.5 years with the Leaders Building Leaders mentorship program that initiated through CUDA, through the Young Emerging Leaders Task Force, which I'm also part of. So, it's really exciting. And this fall we'll have, so every second year with CUDA at the fall show is our Young Emerging Leaders conference. So we'll have the Young Leaders Summit that's tied into CUDA. There is a mentorship part of that. I'm actually speaking at that as well during the sort of speed networking event. But yeah, I mean, for me, mentorship has been really the key to my career, I would say. And I know I say this every time I speak, is that people say, what sort of education do you have? And I always say I have APTA and CUDA, and they always look at me because I have no idea what I'm talking about. And to me, it's really been the key to the success is meeting our peers that want to share the stories. I always say, being invited into the rooms and just transit is a very unique business where people want to share hits, misses, successes. And they want to see everybody, they want to be a thought leader, and then they want to be, I continue to be amazed, and this is probably the next question, but just on, from a mentorship perspective, it's great to have all these people that you can get, sort of these value adds and put them into your own personal toolcase. But the adaptability of our industry always amazes me too, and just the people that are in it. So I think that's something we're going to talk about a little later, but that's one of the things that continues to inspire me. But mentorship, it means a lot to me. This year I'm going through as actually a mentee. So I'm being mentored by, I chose to go through our program the other way. I've mentored someone for the last 2 years, and this year I have a transit director on the East Coast, Judy out in St. John's, that's being my mentor, and she's just teaching me a lot about just sort of how she prepares for board meetings and some of the political stuff. And I just love to hear the different challenges and stories from our CEOs. I think people have no idea what goes on to get a bus on the road really behind the scenes. So really, really inspiring for sure.
If you like this episode of the Transit Unplugged podcast, then you will love what we have coming up. We're calling it Super September because we're creating an all-star guest lineup just for you. Let's face it, the world is rapidly changing and everything is so fast, and our industry is speeding up. So in September, the Transit Unplugged team is bringing you some of the biggest voices in the industry, from New York, Chicago, maybe even at the federal level. I don't want to tip our hand yet, but you will get a chance to learn how to manage all the policy and funding changes, the post-COVID funding fiscal cliff, how to do all of it, and so much more. If you haven't yet subscribed to the podcast, do it now so you don't miss a thing when Transit Unplugged brings you Super September. Subscribe right now before you get distracted, because we know something's going to ping or a squirrel will come by. So please subscribe and we'll bring you some great shows in Super September. Now back to Paul Comfort and this episode of the Transit Unplugged podcast.
Alaya, one of the things that's also changed, I think, since the pandemic when we were doing our show together is social media has become even more relevant in people's lives. There's a new saying called doom scrolling, which I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I think it's when you just sit there on your couch and you just scroll through your Instagram feed or your TikTok or whatever, especially young people, but even, adults really spend a lot of their time on social media, and transit agencies have gotten into social media in a big way. I know when I was at the MTA, I was just back visiting the Baltimore MTA recently for an episode of our TV show for September. And I remember we were there, we got on 10 social media platforms and we had different different goal for each one. You know, Twitter would be, now it's X, but it would be service disruptions, right? Facebook would be stories of our drivers, and Instagram would be pictures of cool places you could go riding the system and those kind of things. Tell us about the role of social media in transit now as you see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned doom scrolling, because Transit's got an opportunity to offer something to the doom scrollers that isn't so doomy, right? Like we have good news to share about Transit. And as you mentioned, some channels you can also share alerts, rider alerts as well. But I just want to make sure that we're not thinking of social media as a marketing cure-all. It doesn't do everything for you. You know, your critical pieces of information are your passenger information, and that might be print or on your website. You might have a system for alerts, like Simplified Transit, for example, or something that Modaxo offers that is, people can sign up for alerts. So social media it's a place for your community to gather to see what's new with you. But in terms of like your biggest news and things that you really need to get out there should be other channels, and social media shouldn't be used for that. I love the idea, as you mentioned, Instagram for beautiful pictures of your system. And I think that's a great opportunity, including a great opportunity for riders and other people in the public to contribute those images. I've been working right now with YARTS, which is the Yosemite Area Regional Transit System, and they recently set up a second Instagram account that riders can contribute their photos of Yosemite to, and then YARTS will promote those photos. And it's sort of like a scrapbook of Yosemite that YARTS is developing. Yeah, and then the other opportunity that I think is Metrolink does this. They also do a daily kind of "we're here for you" on Facebook. They used to put their alerts out on Facebook, but they got a system for their alerts. They now, instead of putting their alerts out, they remind everybody every morning, "Hey, we're here for you from 6 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. or whatever it is," and they post an image that somebody in the community has sent them. So they have like a guest photographer every day from their ridership group that they post on Facebook. And that kind of thing gets a lot of engagement. Finally, something else I see that's really very popular and uplifting on especially Facebook and Instagram is transit interns making video, because you've got some 21-year-olds or some college students. They're fantastic at that kind of thing. They're digital natives. They're not just digital natives, they're social media natives. And they know, they can do this kind of stuff very quickly and put out really cute videos. Plus, they have social communities of their own, like real live in-person social communities. And those people will follow that social media. So it's a nice way to grow your market.
Hey, Alaya, I like that. And Paul, one of the things I'll add about the social media for sure, I think, yeah, and then I know you've seen me speak, but I typically have a slide where I talk about, sort of changing your feed, right? Like, because the more you click onto some sort of thing, the more, and me, I obviously talk about sort of workplace culture, kindness, and trying to search some of those items. But the one thing I will say, I love social media. I think it's part of our brands, whether we think it is or not. We've really seen just an abundant amount of how people have changed from links to QR codes and all these really cool things that take you to different places. I mean, LinkedIn does it now too. But one of the things I will say that I've noticed even myself in the last 2-3 weeks on the social media aspect is just with all the AI, just how much fake information is like constantly bombarding each day. So I think we need to be careful. And I've even seen it where they've made fun of someone else's social campaign and they've twisted it. And so, I imagine this is going to pose another challenge for our transit agencies and their campaigns. I mean, I live in Vancouver, BC, and we, both BC Transit and TransLink, absolutely incredible at their marketing. I mean, TransLink just had a big promotion on the weekend. They did their first ever trading cards, and it's got all the old, and it was, it was lined up around the block people to get these. But, it's interesting. You still see these naysayers and all these other things that this creates, which is unfortunate. But I think we've got to remain positive, and it's an amazing tool. There is a very different side of it with AI and how that's evolved since probably we all were last together as well.
Yeah. I'll talk to Elea about that in just a minute, about the AI thing. Yeah. But I do want to comment on that with Kevin Quinn, that idea of doing the trading cards. What did you think of that, Elea? You saw that, I'm sure. I thought it was a brilliant idea.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it will work for agencies like TransLink. I know King County Metro, SEPTA in Southeast Pennsylvania, Muni, BART. They have significant fan bases, and they're also in locations where there's like a high concentration of transit geeks and city planning geeks and very engaged citizens. That builds loyalty and awareness. It doesn't reach out super broadly. It's not going to bring you a lot of new followers who are like, oh, I like trading cards, but I've never thought of transit before. Like, that's not going to happen, right? They're starting with transit, but it will deepen your relationship with your already established community.
Yeah, and this just comes on the heels. They just did another promotion probably 2 months ago where they partnered with a local brewery to do a transit collaboration beer, and it was called Platform Pilsner, and it has the can is the front of a train. And again, it created a bunch of buzz. People went to this. They wanted to buy the 4-pack and take pictures. I mean, I went with my family just because I'm in transit and I know them very well. And it was funny, the day I actually took my in-laws for lunch to the brewery, I ran into the head of marketing and community outreach for TransLink was there grabbing a 4-pack as well of his own branded beer. So it was pretty funny. But yeah, they've sort of taking it to the next level on things they do. And I really like that, again, the passion in our industry and just how people will think outside of the box and take a chance, right? I mean, that's really what it's all about sometimes too.
Yeah. The next conference presentation I want to do, you talked about running into each other at conferences recently, is I want to do big city ad campaigns and how smaller agencies can get that kind of bang and on their own budgets. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of getting big bang out of it, we're going to have Kevin Quinn, the CEO of TransLink, who used to be the CEO of the Maryland Transit Agency here as well. He's going to be, Mike, with us at CUDA at the fall conference in Montreal, and he'll be on a CEO roundtable that I'm hosting beyond the CUDA schedule. So if you want to see and hear more, I'm going to ask him to bring some of those trading cards with him and show everybody kind of what he's doing there, because they are a big city agency. But Alea, as you mentioned, could smaller agencies kind of pick up ideas from that? And one of the things that people are doing now that Mike mentioned that I want to ask you about, though, even more, Alea, is AI. What is the role of AI in marketing?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on the size of your agency, right? If you have a big agency, you're already implementing AI tools. They could be very useful in project management. They can be useful in content creation. It's a little bit like turning a 4-year-old loose on certain things. You've got to pay attention to what you get out. But for example, for Yarts, I just used an AI platform to quickly write up 3 blogs for them just as samples of what they might put in their blog. So bigger agencies definitely, I know, are already very plugged in. Smaller agencies, I feel like they might be experiencing some FOMO, some fear of missing out, that they're not up to speed on AI. But I want to reassure people that you can be... it's not going to change your life in these enormous ways. It's not going to do your marketing. It still can't really do great campaigns like a human being can think up. It might be able to make some of your workflows more efficient, and it might be able to save you a little bit of time, but it should not replace your CMO or your marketing staff. One of the fear pieces I've heard about AI, of course, that we've all heard, is that it's going to make us lose jobs. The level I see that happening at is sort of that intern level. Produce this thing for me really fast, or set up this spreadsheet for me really fast. So as a young person, being able to use the AI to make that tool happen, I think is going to be a very important skill. But I don't see it replacing CMOs and senior marketing people. I certainly hope it doesn't. And I also don't see it putting anybody in a position where there can be, on a beach with a nice cocktail while AI does their marketing job for them. I think still thinking from the human perspective, and also managing from the human perspective, is still really important. And I think that the most critical thing we do in marketing, there's so much fun stuff you could do, trading cards and beers are just a couple of examples. But really, I think the most important thing we do in marketing in transit is working directly with our community partners and having, even just a handful of community partners who run social service agencies, educational institutes, government offices, and marketing through them. That's your real kind of real intelligence, right? Is being able to scale your marketing by having a handful of contacts to whom you push out your marketing materials, and then they market to their audiences. Because those audiences, people who might be the audience of marketing or might be in the lobby of a social service agency, they're not following the transit agency's Facebook page. They're not looking at the transit agency's website, but they may see a lobby sign that changes their lives and really makes them understand that they can get to their appointments affordably. That is still the core of marketing, and building those relationships is still really critical to success.
Yeah, I think that's a great comment. To sort of hold this cross, I call it cross contamination, right? The friends who know the friends, and it's sort of like relationship building. But when you see, like, for instance, a lot of the sports teams now, right? When you download a ticket, it's got the link on the back to take public transit to an event, right? Those are the type of things where you get together and you leverage off one another. I remember during the pandemic, we saw some pretty unique things too, as people were trying to save service, rebrand service, or do certain things. But I remember Missoula Transit up in Montana, Jen and her team. I remember they did this live music series. I think it was on like every second Friday on the bus. They brought an artist onto the bus. I thought it was just absolutely, Paul resonates being an ex-DJ like you. I am as well, just this live music and bringing in local artists. And then they had art on the bus. I think these are just some great ideas of how the transit agencies, right, they touch these other entities that then also leverage back and they get that extra amplification from those partners that Alea was referencing, right? So it's great.
One more comment on the AI, Alea. I was just listening to a podcast this morning with Doug Ellen, Hollywood producer. I like his podcast, and he was talking about how he was using AI to write basically a script and the pitch notes to pitch a new show to the network, and how everything that AI did for him is what an assistant used to do for him, a writer's assistant. And he said just what you said. He said, I don't think it's going to replace like the main ideas, because if you ask it just to come up with an idea, it's not there yet. But he said, I'm talking to my phone, I'm giving the whole spiel for 45 minutes, and then I ask it to shape up what I said, organize it, put it in a pitch. And he said, that's what I used to have a younger assistant do. And so, I've seen comments from senior leaders outside of the industry, but in banking, say that, within 6 months to a year, we're not going to recognize this world, the jobs that are going to be adjusted and changed as a result of AI.
As the mother of two kids in their 20s, I'm holding out some hope that there's still some work for young careerists to develop.
Right.
I will tell you, I recently used AI to build a list of Facebook pages in a county in California that I needed for a project in Butte County, California. And it populated the list. I watched it happen, and it populated the list so fast that I actually said the words, I love you, while it was doing this. It just blew me away. And then I had the thought, I better check on these. And I would say, I'm going to say close to 90% did not exist. And it had completely these Facebook accounts. And I started going down the list, and I was like, well, that account doesn't exist. That account doesn't exist.
Wow.
And then I called a young admin person and said, I don't have time to go through the rest of these to see if they exist. Would you please see if they exist? And so I got the real human intelligence back involved. And basically, it had produced an almost useless list for me.
Well, that goes into really our last point I wanted to talk about, and that is the power of human interaction and the power of human relationships. I met both of you, basically through LinkedIn, and then we formed real relationships. It wasn't my AI assistant talking to yours, which wasn't even a thing 7 years ago.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. Especially on the tails of AI. AI is, we're on the verge of a loneliness epidemic. And AI is not going to make that better. And our real lives people are, the people who matter to us are people who are not perfect. And we continue to love them and do things with them, even if they're messy. And AI gives us the opportunity to engage with something that is not messy. It just gives us what we want. And ultimately, that's not good for human beings. We need to know how to negotiate our difference with other human beings. Transit is wonderful in that it brings people together in a very messy human way. And sometimes that's not perfect. And sometimes that's why people stay away from transit. But ultimately, the reason, for example, that the three of us are here talking is because we like to engage with people and we like to kind of negotiate our difference and get to know somebody deeper. And if an AI is writing my press release, that's one opportunity that I've lost to mentor a young person in how to write a press release. So all of those thoughts, I think, are related to social engagement. And yeah, really, I mean, we wouldn't be here if we didn't love transit, and we know that transit really does bring real human beings together. The AI is just a little bit of a tool that can help us maybe be together more efficiently as real human beings.
Well, thank you both for being my guest today on Transit Unplugged. Great to hear from you and catch up, to have you back on the program. If you want to get a hold of Mike Bismeyer or Elea Carey, we'll put links to how you can get a hold of them in the show notes. And remember that this is a podcast that is here for you. We talk to transit leaders around the world every week, and great to catch up with both of you. You guys are, I wouldn't say up and coming because you're already established stars in our industry now, and appreciate you taking your time to be with us today.
Paul, thank you so much.
Yeah, great to see you as well, Alaya.
Thanks for listening to Transit Unplugged. I'm executive producer Julie Gates, and this episode was created by host and producer Paul Comfort, producer Chris O'Keefe, associate producer Cindy Raskin, and podcast intern Des Gates. Transit Unplugged is being brought to you by Modaxo, passionate about moving the world's people. If you want to dive deeper behind the transit headlines and get boots on the ground intel on important updates like the Trump administration's transit priorities or how to get funding, check out Transit Unplugged Insider, our new YouTube show, where Paul and I take you inside today's hot topics. Paul knows what's going on in Washington, D.C. and has the inside scoop. He's taking a lot of meetings with a lot of people, and we want to make sure you know what's going on. You can watch and subscribe to Transit Unplugged Insider on the Transit Unplugged podcast page on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Transit Unplugged.